In a shocking twist, Burkina Faso, led by Ibrahim Traoré, has stunned the world by signing a $17 billion grain deal with Russia. This audacious move threatens to reshape global food security, shifting the balance of power away from the West. But what is the real reason behind this surprising agreement? Under Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso is making a bold bet on its future. This decision could ignite a geopolitical shift with lasting consequences. But what will happen next? And why is this deal so significant? You are about to uncover a secret that could change how we view international power dynamics. The details of this deal are far more intricate than they first appear. What happens next could shift the global order as we know it. With $17 billion on the table, this deal promises economic growth and independence for Burkina Faso. But at what cost? The West is watching closely, and its reaction will shape the future of international partnerships. As the stakes rise, the questions are becoming more critical. Can this bold move bring prosperity, or will it bring unforeseen consequences? As the dust settles from the groundbreaking announcement, it's becoming clear that this deal is not just about grain. It's about shifting the power dynamics in West Africa and beyond. The investment includes modern farming techniques and vital infrastructure that could transform Burkina Faso's agricultural landscape. But it's more than just an economic agreement. Russia's presence is growing, and with it, the tension between the West and Moscow. The deal represents a broader struggle for influence in Africa, a continent long exploited by foreign powers. Yet, as Ibrahim Traoré says, we are no longer begging for aid, we are choosing our own path. Ibrahim Traoré's rise to power in Burkina Faso is not just the story of a young military leader, it's the story of a country reclaiming its sovereignty. His bold stance against Western interference has turned him into a symbol of defiance for many in Africa, as Traoré charts a new course for his country. The impact of the grain deal is already being felt. Farmers, who have suffered under poor harvests and limited aid, are now hopeful for the future. With Russian-backed infrastructure and guaranteed grain supplies, the promise of a brighter future is within reach. However, some question if this newfound hope will truly benefit the people or serve as a stepping stone for Moscow's long-term geopolitical goals. Burkina Faso's journey towards a transformative grain deal began long before today's announcement. It started with mounting tensions between the government and Western powers, particularly France, a former colonial ruler. 3 months ago, France suspended all development assistance to Burkina Faso, prompting President Ibrahim Traoré to expel the French ambassador and order the withdrawal of French troops stationed in the country. This bold move ignited a wave of political shifts across the Sahel region and was a key moment in the growing divergence between Burkina Faso and its former colonial masters. Despite these tensions, the negotiations with Russia began in secret, driven by the need for independence and self-sufficiency in the face of mounting challenges. The country's agricultural sector had long been crippled by limited resources, poor infrastructure, and an inability to compete in the global market. Climate change exacerbated these issues, reducing crop yields by nearly 40% over the past decade. Traoré's decision to reach out to Moscow wasn't just about money, it was about ending the cycle of dependence on Western aid and charting a new path for Burkina Faso. For 18 months, diplomatic channels between Traoré's inner circle and Russian officials were kept tightly under wraps. Russia, isolated by Western sanctions over its involvement in Ukraine, saw an opportunity to strengthen its influence in Africa and undermine Western dominance in the region. The negotiations were described as a diplomatic chess match, where both sides played their cards carefully. Understanding the stakes were high. The breakthrough came when Russia agreed to invest a staggering $17 billion into Burkina Faso's agricultural sector. The deal includes $8 billion to build new grain processing facilities, irrigation systems to cover millions of hectares of previously arid land, and training for over 50,000 farmers. The new infrastructure promises to boost food production and reduce the country's reliance on imported grains, a crucial step in securing Burkina Faso's food independence. But the deal's impact isn't confined to Burkina Faso alone. It has ripple effects across the entire Sahel region, where food insecurity has plagued millions of people. As part of the agreement, Russia will supply 4 million tons of grain annually to Burkina Faso and neighboring countries at prices 40% below current market rates. This provision alone is expected to lower food costs for 70 million West Africans by as much as 35% within the next 18 months, offering a lifeline to a region desperately in need of affordable food. The third and most controversial aspect of the deal involves the creation of the Sahel Grain Reserve, a network of grain storage silos to be jointly operated by Russian technicians and local officials. These reserves are designed to serve as strategic stockpiles, ready to be deployed during times of crisis, such as droughts, conflicts, or other emergencies. But buried in the fine print of the agreement is a clause that has raised alarm bells among security analysts. The provision allows Russia to use these facilities for logistical operations necessary to ensure supply chain integrity. What exactly does that mean? Could these grain storage facilities be used for military purposes? The vague language surrounding this provision has sparked fears in European defense ministries that the grain deal might serve as a cover for Russian military expansion in Africa. At the same time, this deal highlights the growing disillusionment with Western promises. Burkina Faso had been promised aid and support by Western nations for years, but the response had been underwhelming. In the face of ongoing crises, such as the surge in terrorist insurgencies and widespread displacement, the West failed to deliver meaningful assistance. For Ibrahim Traoré, this failure was the final straw. In his words, "They wanted us dependent. They wanted us on our knees. Well, we found a different path." Now, with the ink drying on the $17 billion deal, the question remains, will this partnership with Russia deliver the prosperity and independence Burkina Faso desperately needs, or will it come at a price that the country cannot afford? The answers to these questions will have lasting implications for the future of Burkina Faso, Russia, and the broader Sahel region. The numbers behind this deal paint a picture of both opportunity and risk. The promise of $17 billion in investment is staggering, but what does it mean in concrete terms? According to projections from the International Food Security Institute, this deal could increase Burkina Faso's grain production by 320% within the next 7 years. Such a dramatic increase would transform the country from a net importer of food into a regional exporter, generating an estimated $4.2 billion in annual export revenue by 2032. The impact of this shift is not just economic. The construction of 12 grain processing plants and the development of irrigation systems over 2 million hectares of land will create an estimated 75,000 direct jobs. Beyond that, the ripple effect of these projects will generate an additional 200,000 indirect jobs in related industries, including transportation, maintenance, and administration. This large-scale infrastructure overhaul promises to revitalize an agricultural sector that has been in decline for years, offering much-needed hope to farmers who have long struggled with unreliable harvests and limited access to modern farming technologies. But the financial implications extend far beyond Burkina Faso. This deal is set to send shockwaves across the Sahel region. For neighboring countries that suffer from food insecurity, the promise of affordable grain supplies at prices 40% below current market rates could make a tangible difference in millions of lives. Dr. Aminata Kon, an agricultural economist at the University of Ouagadougou, predicts that this provision could cut food costs for 70 million West Africans by as much as 35% within just 18 months. This would significantly ease the burden on families already struggling with soaring food prices and economic instability. The strategic importance of this deal also lies in the creation of the Sahel Grain Reserve. This vast network of grain storage facilities will be capable of holding enough food to feed the entire Sahel region for up to 8 months without any external supply. This self-sufficiency is critical for a region often ravaged by droughts and conflicts, where supply chains are frequently disrupted. In essence, this reserve could serve as an emergency lifeline during crises, ensuring that millions of people have access to food when they need it most. However, there is a darker side to these promises. The security implications of this deal cannot be overlooked. While the infrastructure and food security aspects of the deal are undoubtedly impressive, the involvement of Russian military personnel in managing the grain reserves raises questions. Could these facilities double as military outposts? The vague wording of the agreement's logistics provision has raised concerns among European defense officials. who worry that this deal could give Russia a foothold in a region already plagued by instability. If these concerns prove true, the strategic consequences could be far-reaching. For now, the future remains uncertain, but the numbers tell a compelling story. If this deal is fully implemented, it could reshape the food security landscape across West Africa and provide Burkina Faso with the tools to escape the cycle of poverty and dependence on foreign aid. But will it deliver on its promises, or will the country find itself caught in a web of political and security challenges? Not everyone is convinced that Burkina Faso's partnership with Russia is the right move. Critics argue that this deal, while economically promising, comes with significant risks. Some political analysts, like Dr. James Okonkwo, a political science professor at Lagos Business School, warn that Burkina Faso may be trading one form of dependency for another. Moscow's interest in Africa, they argue, is not driven by altruism but by a desire to expand its influence. The grain deal could give Russia strategic footholds across the Sahel, allowing Moscow to build influence in a region where the West has traditionally held sway. Critics are concerned that the long-term result of this partnership could be another cycle of exploitation, this time under Russia's watch. There is also the issue of human rights. While the West has long criticized Ibrahim Traoré's authoritarian tendencies, supporters argue that the true source of Burkina Faso's frustration is the failure of Western powers to live up to their promises. Where were these human rights advocates when our people were starving? Asks Mariam Sankura, a civil society activist in Burkina Faso. Supporters of the deal argue that Traoré's actions are a direct response to the failures of the West to provide tangible support when Burkina Faso needed it most. They see this as a necessary step in the country's quest for true sovereignty. While these arguments are valid, the question remains, is it better for Burkina Faso to continue relying on the West, a partner that has failed it repeatedly? Or is it time to embrace a new path, even if that means dealing with a less-than-ideal partner in Russia? The truth lies somewhere in between. The grain deal offers a chance for genuine economic development and sovereignty, but it also raises the specter of new dependencies. The risk is that Burkina Faso may find itself just as beholden to Russia as it was to the West. The future will tell whether the gamble will pay off or if it will backfire. And then, just as the deal was about to be finalized, something unexpected happened. A leaked document revealed that the United States had offered Burkina Faso an even larger deal, $22 billion. $5 billion more than the Russian offer. The catch? Burkina Faso would have to reject Russia's proposal and restore relations with France. The West's offer included debt forgiveness, military support against insurgencies, and guaranteed grain supplies, which would have eased Burkina Faso's immediate needs. Why then did Ibrahim Traoré turn it down? This is the turning point that changes everything. For many, this decision appears to be a rejection of everything the West has long represented: aid with strings attached, conditions on governance, and a patronizing stance that undermines African sovereignty. Traoré's refusal to accept the West's offer speaks volumes about the growing disillusionment with traditional power structures. His rejection of a larger, more lucrative deal with the West in favor of a partnership with Russia signals a shift in Africa's geopolitical alignment, and the implications of this decision are far-reaching. Will more African leaders follow suit and seek alternative partnerships with global powers that offer true sovereignty? The consequences of Burkina Faso's decision to partner with Russia are already being felt far beyond the country's borders. For the government, the grain deal offers a lifeline, a way to break free from Western control and bring real, tangible benefits to the people. However, the ripple effects of this agreement are just beginning to take shape. For the government of Burkina Faso, this deal represents a significant shift in its foreign policy. In the wake of a growing insurgency, the need for military support is undeniable, and Russia's willingness to provide aid without political strings is appealing. However, the deal comes at a cost, one that may be more than Burkina Faso can afford. The agreement will undoubtedly lead to increased influence from Moscow in the region, which raises questions about the future of Burkina Faso's political independence. While it may escape Western control, it risks becoming tethered to Russia's geopolitical interests, which could ultimately limit its sovereignty in the long term. For the citizens of Burkina Faso, this deal holds the promise of economic transformation. The establishment of grain processing plants, the expansion of irrigation systems, and the promise of affordable food could drastically change the lives of millions of people who have long suffered from poverty and food insecurity. The numbers speak for themselves. 320% growth in grain production, 75,000 direct jobs, and an additional 200,000 indirect positions in related industries. These developments represent a potential lifeline for many, especially in rural areas that have been left behind by previous aid initiatives. But there's a looming question. Will this economic boom truly trickle down to the people, or will it only benefit the elites? For the wider region, the impact is even more significant. West Africa has been facing a growing food crisis, and Burkina Faso's new grain reserves, coupled with the promise of affordable grain supplies, offer a potential solution. If implemented as planned, this deal could reduce food costs for 70 million people across West Africa by 35%. This would be a game changer in a region where hunger is a persistent issue. However, there are also fears that the Sahel Grain Reserve, which is designed to hold massive quantities of grain for emergencies, could end up being more of a tool of geopolitical leverage than a true humanitarian solution. What if Russia uses these reserves to further its own strategic interests, rather than for the benefit of the people of West Africa? On the global stage, this deal is already shifting power dynamics. The West's influence in Africa, which has long been shaped by economic aid and military presence, is now being challenged by Russia. If other African nations follow Burkina Faso's lead, we could see a massive geopolitical realignment, with Russia gaining a foothold in a region once dominated by Western powers. The strategic value of this partnership for Moscow cannot be understated. It not only provides access to vital resources and markets, but also strengthens Russia's position on the global stage, particularly in its rivalry with the West. As the deal begins to take shape, the real question is, what will the long-term consequences be for Burkina Faso, for West Africa, and for global politics? The stakes are high, and only time will tell if this bold gamble will pay off or if it will spiral into a geopolitical crisis. As we look to the future, several possible outcomes emerge from the $17 billion grain deal. The most likely scenario is that Burkina Faso will see some short-term gains, as the deal promises increased grain production, infrastructure development, and economic growth. However, this success will likely come with new challenges, particularly in maintaining a balance between sovereignty and external influence. While the deal could provide much-needed resources, it could also make Burkina Faso more reliant on Russia, creating a new form of dependency. If the deal delivers on its promises, it could lead to a gradual shift in the region, with other African nations following Burkina Faso's example and turning to Russia for support. Another potential scenario is that the deal could backfire, particularly if the geopolitical risks outweigh the benefits. As the deal progresses, it could raise tensions with Western powers and lead to sanctions or diplomatic isolation. Furthermore, the economic benefits of the deal may not reach the people as promised, leaving the country vulnerable to internal unrest. If Russia's involvement grows too dominant, the country could find itself caught in a tug-of-war between Moscow and Western powers, risking its independence once again. While Russia's support may provide immediate relief, the long-term costs could prove too high, especially if the people of Burkina Faso feel betrayed by the leadership's decision. The third, more optimistic scenario is that the deal will successfully transform Burkina Faso's agricultural sector, making it a regional leader in grain production. With Russia's investment, the country could become a major player in the global food market, increasing trade opportunities across Africa and beyond. The creation of the Sahel Grain Reserve could ensure long-term food security for Burkina Faso and its neighbors, while the economic boost from infrastructure projects could provide lasting benefits to the people. If the country can manage its newfound geopolitical position and maintain its sovereignty, this partnership with Russia could usher in a new era of prosperity for Burkina Faso and the Sahel region. Ultimately, the future of Burkina Faso will depend on how it navigates the complex geopolitical landscape created by this deal. The risks are substantial, but the rewards could be transformative. Time will tell whether this bold move will pay off, or if it will lead to unforeseen consequences that shake the foundations of Burkina Faso's sovereignty and stability. As the world watches Burkina Faso's bold move, the question on everyone's mind is, what does this mean for you, the viewer? The unfolding events are not just abstract political maneuvers, they're shaping the future of global power dynamics and, potentially, your own life. If you are someone who cares deeply about global politics and the future of international relations, this story is for you. Burkina Faso's decision to partner with Russia marks a critical turning point in the struggle for African sovereignty and independence. As the world's powers recalibrate their alliances and redefine their global strategies, it's essential to understand the ripple effects of this deal. For those in positions of influence or decision-making, this is a moment to reflect on how global power shifts could impact your own strategies, business operations, or geopolitical stances. For those of us living in the regions directly impacted by these shifts, the stakes are even higher. People across Africa, especially in the Sahel, could soon see changes in food security, economic opportunities, and political alignments. Whether you're a farmer in West Africa, a policymaker, or someone concerned with global peace and stability, this deal will affect you, directly or indirectly. Then there are the skeptics, those who question whether this shift toward Russia is truly in Africa's best interests. If you're part of this group, it's crucial to consider the broader implications. Could this partnership with Russia create a new form of dependency? Will it benefit the African people or simply serve another power's agenda? Wherever you stand, the decision made by Ibrahim Traoré is shaping the future, and it's up to all of us to understand how these choices will affect not just Burkina Faso, but the world. The $17 billion grain deal with Russia presents Burkina Faso with both an opportunity and a challenge. While the deal promises economic growth and food security, it also carries risks in terms of sovereignty and long-term dependency. So, what should the country do next to ensure it maximizes the benefits of this partnership while safeguarding its independence? Here's a clear roadmap for the future. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership will be critical in steering Burkina Faso through this new phase. To ensure that the deal benefits the people, Traoré must focus on maintaining political independence while engaging with Russia. This means keeping the lines of communication open with the West and other global players to avoid being seen as fully aligned with one power. Traoré should prioritize transparency in the execution of the deal, ensuring that the investments in agriculture and infrastructure reach the intended beneficiaries. Success will be measured by improvements in food security, economic growth, and job creation, alongside the continued autonomy of the Burkinabe people. While the grain deal focuses heavily on Burkina Faso, its impact could extend to the entire Sahel region. Burkina Faso must lead the way in building partnerships with neighboring countries to ensure the success of the Sahel Grain Reserve. This will not only strengthen regional food security, but also create economic opportunities for other nations. Collaboration with Russia on the infrastructure and technology transfer should be used as a model to secure further development projects in the region. By presenting this deal as a success, Burkina Faso can set a precedent for other African nations to take control of their food security. While the grain deal will provide an initial boost to Burkina Faso's economy, the country must not rely solely on agriculture. Diversification is essential for long-term sustainability. Traoré's administration should create policies to encourage investment in other sectors such as education, technology, and renewable energy. The grain sector can serve as a springboard for other industries, creating a more balanced economy. With the grain reserves and processing plants in place, Burkina Faso could also become a key player in regional trade, offering economic resilience even if global market conditions change. Finally, Burkina Faso must balance its relationship with Russia and the West. While the grain deal strengthens ties with Moscow, maintaining cordial diplomatic relations with the European Union and the United States is vital for Burkina Faso's stability. The government should seek economic and military assistance from a range of international partners, ensuring that no single power becomes too dominant. As the country strengthens its agricultural sector, it should also engage in multilateral forums to advocate for African sovereignty and self-reliance, positioning itself as a leader in the movement for a fairer global order. In conclusion, the $17 billion deal with Russia represents a turning point in Burkina Faso's future. With strong leadership, regional cooperation, and economic diversification, the country can harness the benefits of this deal while maintaining its independence. But it's crucial that Burkina Faso stays vigilant and strategic, ensuring that the partnership with Russia serves the needs of the people, not just the geopolitical interests of foreign powers. As we look back on the monumental decision made by Ibrahim Traoré and the Burkinabe government, it's clear that the stakes are higher than ever. This deal, though just the beginning, marks a shift in power that could resonate far beyond Burkina Faso. But the journey is far from over. The challenges ahead are real, and the risks of this new path are just as significant as the opportunities. Ibrahim Traoré's decision is more than just about grain. It's about dignity, sovereignty, and a commitment to a future where African nations can stand tall, independent, and unshackled from the influence of former colonial powers. His decision to turn down the West's offer in favor of a partnership with Russia speaks to a deep-seated desire for respect and equality, values that have long been denied to Africa by the global order. As Burkina Faso moves forward, it is clear that this decision has implications not just for the country, but for the entire continent. The world is watching closely, and so are millions of people whose livelihoods are tied to the outcome of this bold, new direction. This is a story of struggle, of hope, and of the fight for a future free from external control. But as Traoré himself has said, the journey is just beginning. The path that lies ahead will be fraught with challenges, and Burkina Faso will need to remain vigilant, resilient, and strategic if it is to succeed. The world has been shocked, and now we wait to see how this chapter in history will unfold. Will it deliver the prosperity that the Burkinabe people have long been promised? Or will it become just another broken promise in Africa's long history of post-colonial struggle? The choices made now will echo for generations. As we wrap up this powerful story, we must ask ourselves, what role do we play in shaping the future? The decisions made by leaders like Ibrahim Traoré may be out of our control, but their implications ripple through the world in ways that affect us all. This is not just a story about Burkina Faso. It's a story about the struggle for sovereignty, the pursuit of dignity, and the fight for a fairer global system. If you believe that the world needs more honest dialogue, more understanding of the complexities of geopolitics, and more recognition of the rights of nations to determine their own future, then share this story. Let's keep this conversation alive and ensure that we don't forget the lessons that can be learned from this turning point in history. What do you think? Is Ibrahim Traoré's bold decision the beginning of a new era, or a gamble that will come back to haunt Burkina Faso? Share your thoughts and join the global discussion on the future of sovereignty and international relations. Together, we can keep these stories alive. Together, we can shape the future.